2 nights before the wedding, I was polishing the table settings for our rehearsal dinner when my phone buzzed. No name, just a number I didn't recognize and a single message that changed everything. You deserve the truth. Check the hotel logs. My hands froze above the crystal napkin rings. For a moment, I thought it was a prank. But the voice in my gut, the one we always try to hush, started screaming. Nathan was supposed to be with his groomsmen that night, going over the timeline and finishing last-minute tux fittings. Jenna, my maid of honor, my best friend, had just texted me a picture of champagne glasses and a charcuterie board she'd set up at home to unwind. But something didn't sit right. I checked the hotel's name mentioned in the text. It was where we'd reserved the honeymoon suite for after the ceremony, one of the fanciest places in town, not somewhere you'd casually stop by without a reason. My heart pounded as I opened my laptop and logged into our shared vendor accounts. Nathan had used his name on all the bookings. Rookie mistake. There it was. Presidential suite booked under Nathan Reynolds. Guest 2, Jenna Ford. Check-in, 5:43 p.m. Checkout still active. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the screen, air caught somewhere between my lungs and my throat. My fiancé, my best friend, in a suite I had once dreamed of walking into as a wife. They didn't even bother to cover their tracks. That's what stunned me most. After 2 years of building a life with Nathan, after nearly 2 decades of calling Jenna my chosen sister, this was how it ended. With digital breadcrumbs and a cowardly message, I should have canceled the wedding right then, called my parents, called the venue, called off everything. But I didn't. Instead, I closed the laptop, poured myself a glass of water, and sat perfectly still for a full hour. Not because I was paralyzed, because I was calculating. Jenna was still slated to pick up the dresses in the morning. Nathan would be meeting my brother to review speeches. The illusion was still intact, and I wasn't about to tip my hand. I texted Jenna a simple, "Thanks for the charcuterie idea, looks great." Then Nathan hoped the groomsmen didn't keep you up too late. Love you. Fake smiles for traitors. But behind those messages, I was already building a plan. The guest list had over 150 names. Half the town would be there. My parents had flown in family from 3 different states. The florist had just delivered centerpieces to the chapel. If Jenna and Nathan wanted a stage fine, I'd give them one, but not the show they expected. I called Reverend Doyle, our officiant, a friend of the family since childhood, and one of the few people I trusted with my soul. "I need your help," I said, "and I need you not to ask questions." He didn't. We spoke for 20 minutes. By the end of the call, he agreed to make one tiny change to the ceremony script, one that would leave no room for denial. I emailed him everything, time-stamped receipts, photos, screenshots of messages they'd thought they deleted. I could have run. I could have collapsed. Instead, I started printing, and by the time I zipped up my wedding dress that Saturday morning, I didn't feel like a bride. I felt like a storm in silk. Jenna Ford and I met in 3rd grade during recess when a boy pushed me off the swings and she threw sand in his face. From that moment, we were inseparable. We grew up braided into each other's lives, matching Halloween costumes, joint birthday parties, scribbled promises in yearbooks like BFFs forever, no matter what. Her house became my second home. Her mom called me daughter number 2. In high school, we crushed on the same boys, cried over SAT scores, and wore each other's dresses to every school dance. In college, we were roommates who survived heartbreaks with ice cream and wine, our heads side by side on the same tear-stained pillow. She was there the day I met Nathan. It was at a friend's rooftop party, one of those early summer evenings when the skyline glows pink and laughter feels like magic. I dropped a drink on his shoes. He made a self-deprecating joke and offered me another. Jenna took a photo of us that night, our cheeks flushed, our smiles too wide. "Your future husband," she teased when we got home, nudging me in the ribs. "You're going to marry that guy." She said it like a prophecy. When Nathan proposed, she was the first person I called before my parents, before anyone. She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. She showed up with a bottle of champagne and a Pinterest board already halfway filled. She insisted on being my maid of honor before I even asked. She planned every step with me, the floral arrangements, the table layouts, even the calligraphy on the invites. She joked that she knew the wedding better than I did. And maybe she did. Because now I understand why she kept steering me away from the caterer's mischarges. Why she offered to handle the hotel so I could focus on self-care. Why she suddenly changed the password to our shared planning folder and said it had glitched. I thought it was just stress. I didn't see it, because I couldn't imagine it. Jenna wasn't just my best friend, she was my person, the one who held my hand when my grandmother passed, the one who sent me voice notes before every job interview, the one who knew every childhood scar and every adult insecurity and never used them against me, until now. When I think about it, what cuts deepest isn't Nathan's betrayal, it's hers. Men come and go. Fiancé falls short. But your best friend, your sister in everything but blood, she's not supposed to covet your future. She's supposed to guard it. Looking back, there were signs. Nights when Jenna acted cold whenever I brought up Nathan. The way she always offered to help him carry boxes or pick him up from fittings alone. She once snapped at me during a planning session when I said I just want this day to be perfect. She had muttered, "Must be nice," under her breath. I didn't push. I thought she was tired. Maybe I didn't want to see it. Maybe some part of me did see it and looked away, but not anymore. Because now I was staring it in the face. Two people I loved were willing to ruin me behind my back and smile in my face while doing it. They didn't expect me to find out. They definitely didn't expect me to stay silent, but I wasn't staying silent. I was saving my voice for the one moment that would echo louder than any confrontation ever could. The altar. After the hotel logs, I couldn't stop myself. I became obsessed not out of jealousy but out of need. I needed to know exactly how deep the betrayal ran. I needed to look it in the face and name it and take back my power. So I started digging. The late-night wedding planning sessions that Jenna claimed she and Nathan were having, I traced receipts. He'd ordered takeout from a Thai place across town, nowhere near Jenna's apartment. One night they supposedly worked on seating charts until 1 a.m., but a Lyft charge popped up on Nathan's shared account at midnight straight to the lounge, a club they both once swore they hated. I found photos on social media. Not on their pages, they were smarter than that, but in the background of mutual friends' stories. Blurry maybe, but I knew the way Nathan placed his hand on someone's lower back. I recognized Jenna's red lipstick and signature head tilt. Then came the text logs. I'd never snooped before, never needed to. But Nathan's phone backed up automatically to our cloud. He must have forgotten or assumed I'd never look. I found a folder labeled Notes for Vows. Inside it, screenshots of hotel confirmations, jokes Jenna had texted him, and a selfie of the two of them laughing in what looked like his apartment 2 weeks before our engagement party. They weren't hiding it well. They weren't hiding it at all. What crushed me wasn't the affair, it was the arrogance. The way they smiled in my face, gave toasts in my honor, clinked champagne glasses knowing full well what they'd done. The way Jenna helped me pick out shoes for the wedding she planned to sabotage, the way Nathan looked at me like he was still choosing me when he'd already chosen someone else. I remember sitting on my kitchen floor surrounded by paper trails and printed screenshots and thinking they really thought I'd never find out. But I did. I found it all. The joke was on them now. I could have confronted them, could have thrown a scene, but I knew if I did, they'd spin it. They'd cry, say it was a mistake, beg for forgiveness, try to paint me as the bitter one who couldn't handle stress. No, they weren't getting control of the narrative. I was. So I smiled through my bridal facial, thanked Jenna for confirming the florist delivery, let Nathan kiss my cheek and whisper, "You're going to be the most beautiful bride." I nodded, because I would be. I was just no longer marrying the man beside me or sharing a future with the woman holding my veil. That night I pulled everything together, hotel logs, screenshots, timestamps, photos. I loaded it onto a flash drive and gave it a label for the record. Then I printed each piece and slipped them into an envelope. On the front I wrote in gold ink, "To whom it may concern, Reverend Doyle agreed to help me." We rehearsed the ceremony script like nothing had changed, but it had. My vows were rewritten. My path down the aisle was the same, but the destination had shifted completely. They would stand before me in flowers and suits and smiles and silence, and I would expose them in front of everyone they thought they had fooled. I wasn't the naive bride anymore. I was the reckoning they never saw coming. The morning of the rehearsal dinner, Jenna brought me a lavender-scented candle and a fake smile apology for being too swamped to hang out last night. "I just wanted you to have a calm start to the weekend," she said sweetly, setting it down beside the bridal robe she'd handpicked. I smiled. "You always know what I need." She beamed, clearly convinced her performance was flawless. Nathan kissed my forehead in front of the guests that evening, his arm draped just tightly enough around my waist to say mine, but not enough to say guilty. He raised a glass in a toast and said, "To my beautiful bride who makes everything better just by walking into a room." People clapped, Jenna wiped a fake tear, and I just nodded, because by then I had the flash drive in my purse. That night, while everyone else was clinking glasses and dancing under the string lights, I returned home, lit Jenna's lavender candle, and began organizing. I printed every photo, every screenshot. I laid them out like a storyboard on my dining room table, each betrayal a panel in a graphic novel titled How They Undermined Me. I placed the envelope inside my vow booklet right behind the ribbon. Then I rewrote my vows, one page of truth masked in ceremony. I didn't tell my bridesmaids, not Lydia, not Kate, not even my cousin Ava. I needed their reactions to be real, unfiltered. The only person who knew was Reverend Doyle. We'd gone over it the night before in hushed tones inside the empty chapel. "I'm not here to ruin a wedding," I'd said. "I'm here to stop a lie from being celebrated." He didn't argue, just nodded solemnly and adjusted his glasses. "You have every right, Claire. Just tell me where to cue the slides." Yes, slides. I'd put everything into a timed slideshow: messages, hotel confirmations, GPS timestamps. Clean, direct, unforgiving. I uploaded it onto a flash drive titled Wedding Day Presentation. The AV technician, thinking it was just a montage of childhood memories and engagement photos, smiled as he handed me the HDMI cable. "You want it to play right after vows?" "Right, exactly," I said, and then I slept. Peacefully, because I'd already mourned. I'd already cried for the girl who braided Jenna's hair before every first date, for the woman who believed Nathan's eyes meant forever. But I wasn't her anymore. The next morning, Jenna zipped up my dress. "It's perfect," she whispered. She had no idea how right she was. "Nathan texted me, I'm waiting at the altar, can't wait to see you." I took a deep breath, walked down the aisle with my father on my arm and my heart steady in my chest. And for the first time since this began, I felt powerful. Not because I was hiding pain, but because I was holding proof. My family, my friends, my future, every one of them sat waiting to witness a promise. And they would, just not the one they expected. Because today wasn't about vows, it was about truth, and I was ready to speak it loud, clear, and unshaken before the very people who deserved to know it most. The betrayal may have been silent, but the reckoning, it would echo. The music swelled. I stood at the entrance of the chapel, veil gently framing my face, bouquet trembling only slightly in my hands. My father looked down at me and whispered, "Ready, sweetheart?" I nodded once, more than ever. Each step down the aisle felt like walking through fog and fire, soft on the outside, burning beneath. Nathan stood at the altar, all smiles and confidence. He wore the navy suit we picked out together, the same one Jenna swore made him look like a movie star. And beside him, just one row over, Jenna sat in her blush bridesmaid dress, hair curled in perfect waves, the image of poise. I held her gaze for a single heartbeat. She smiled, I smiled back. The guests all rose, the organ faded, and I took my place across from the man I was supposed to marry. Reverend Doyle greeted the crowd, thanked everyone for coming, and said a few words about love, truth, and commitment. Then, just as we were about to begin the vows, I raised my hand. "Before we continue," I said, turning to face the guests, "I'd like to share something." A hush fell over the room. I turned to Reverend Doyle and gave a small nod. He reached for the small remote on the podium and pressed it. The screen behind us lit up. At first, it looked like a typical wedding slideshow: soft background music, an early photo of Nathan and me smiling at a beach bonfire. But then came the screenshots. A text from Nathan to Jenna. She has no idea. "Meet me at the suite at 9. Then a hotel receipt, 2 names, 1 room the night of the cake tasting I'd gone to alone. Then the selfie, Nathan shirtless, Jenna in a silk robe, time-stamped exactly 2 weeks before our engagement party. Gas erupted from the crowd. Jenna's mouth dropped open. Nathan turned towards the screen, blinking like he was seeing a ghost. "What the hell is this?" he said, voice cracking. I stepped forward, my voice calm but firm. "This is the truth," I said, turning to the guests. Because weddings are supposed to be built on trust, and mine was being built on betrayal. There was a long pause filled only by murmurs and stifled sobs. I looked at Jenna. Her face had drained of color. She gripped the side of her chair like she might fall out of it. Then at Nathan. His hands were half raised like he couldn't decide if he was going to run or argue. "Nathan," I said, "I trusted you with my heart. Jenna, I trusted you with my life. You didn't just break a promise, you broke me." I turned back to the guests. "But I won't let liars speak my vows. I won't let cheaters say I do. I may have walked in wearing white, but I'm walking out clean." I handed the bouquet to Reverend Doyle, then I reached under the podium, pulled out the envelope, and placed it on top. "For the record," I said, and stepped down from the altar. The chapel was silent except for the rustle of my dress. My mother had tears in her eyes but pride too. My bridesmaids looked stunned. Lydia covered her mouth, then stood up and followed me. As I walked down the aisle alone, I didn't look back. Because this wasn't the end of a wedding, it was the beginning of a reckoning, and I had just given them front row seats. Jenna fled the chapel first. She didn't even try to explain. No speech, no apology, just the sound of her heels pounding against the marble floor as she disappeared through a side exit, her blush bridesmaid dress fluttering like a torn flag behind her. Nathan wasn't so lucky. He tried to follow me down the aisle, stammering, "Claire, please, wait, just talk to me." But when he reached for my arm, I stepped back, holding my head high. "Don't touch me," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. The guests parted like the Red Sea. No one stepped forward to help him. My father stood at the chapel doors, his expression unreadable. But when he saw Nathan approaching behind me, he stepped between us. "You don't get to chase her now," my father said quietly, but with steel in his voice. "You had your chance." Nathan opened his mouth like he wanted to argue. Then he saw my father's face and shut it. I walked into the sunlight with nothing but the truth behind me. Outside, people gathered in stunned clusters, whispering, glancing at their phones. I knew the photos and screen grabs would circulate. I'd left them on a shared Google Drive, accessible via the QR code printed in elegant gold on the final slide. "You deserve the full story," it read, and people read it. By sundown, half the town knew. By Monday, everyone did. The fallout was faster than even I expected. Jenna's job at a boutique PR firm was the first to go. Apparently, clients don't take kindly to someone who becomes a trending hashtag for Ahmed of dishonor. Her company released a vague statement about internal values and integrity expectations. Within a day, her LinkedIn profile vanished. Nathan's family wasn't spared either. His mother called mine in tears. His father sent a letter handwritten apologizing for raising a man who betrayed love so profoundly. I didn't answer either. I didn't need revenge. I already had release. My inbox flooded with messages, some from guests thanking me for my courage, others from complete strangers who said I'd inspired them to walk away from their own toxic relationships, and a few from women who had once trusted Jenna with their secrets. Apparently, I wasn't the first target of her envy, just the last. My favorite message came from Lydia, my bridesmaid and longtime friend Claire. "I know today wasn't what you planned, but I've never seen anyone walk away with more grace and fire. You turned a heartbreak into a masterpiece." She came over that night with wine and leftover wedding cake. We sat in my living room, still in our dresses, laughing through our shock and anger like two women surviving a war. They didn't start, but damn well finished. I kept the wedding gifts unopened for now, returned the rings, donated the bouquet, and somewhere deep inside I felt peace begin to settle. They lost me. That was the real loss, not the venue, not the dress, not the pictures that would never make it to an album. Me. They lost the woman who would have shown up every day with loyalty, honesty, and love. And they didn't just lose me. They lost everyone. Because when you betray someone at their altar, you don't just walk away with stained hands. You walk into a life where no one trusts you again. 1 week later, I boarded a flight to Santorini alone. The honeymoon suite still had my name on it. The Seaview balcony, the prepaid couples massage, the wine tasting tour Jenna had smugly said was so you. I didn't cancel a single thing. People asked if it was hard going by myself. No. What would have been hard was spending it beside a liar pretending the ache in my chest was joy. Instead, I sipped wine by the sea hair, tousled by salt and wind, barefoot in a white sundress that flowed like a flag of surrender but not defeat. It wasn't a celebration of what should have been. It was a reclamation of what is. The first night I toasted alone at sunset. To the girl who almost gave her heart to the wrong people, I said aloud. And to the woman who took it back before they could destroy it. And I meant every word. I wandered cliffside paths, journaled under bougainvillea trees, and danced with strangers at an open-air cafe where no one knew my name or my story. For once, I didn't feel like someone half-finished. I didn't feel left. I felt free. I called my mom one afternoon while sitting at a cafe with a view so blue it looked painted. She answered with tears in her voice. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" "I'm not holding on anymore," I said. "I'm moving forward." And I was. Every day felt lighter. Every hour without Nathan or Jenna's shadow over my life felt like an exhale. I wasn't mourning a lost wedding anymore. I was building a new beginning. I bought a journal in a local shop and titled it Beginnings, not as a cliche but as a promise. To write what I felt. To forgive when I was ready. To remember that strength doesn't always roar, it sometimes shows up in white dresses, walking away instead of down the aisle. I filled the first page with a letter to myself. You didn't marry a liar. You didn't keep a traitor for a friend. You saw the truth and you chose yourself. That will always be your power. When I returned home, the headlines had faded. The whispers stopped. People moved on. But I didn't need their attention. What I had was something better, peace that came from within, not applause from outside. I moved into a smaller apartment, painted the walls a soft sage, and adopted a cat I named Olive. I started my own event planning business, one that prioritized joy, not just appearances. Lydia became my first client. I'd rather have a wedding planner who walked out in truth, she told me, than one who stayed for image. And in the corner of my office, tucked away on a shelf, is a photo from what should have been my wedding day, but it's not of the altar, not of Nathan, not of Jenna. It's of me, standing outside the chapel, dress flowing in the breeze, head high, eyes fierce. Lydia snapped it without telling me. It's not a portrait of heartbreak, it's a portrait of liberation. They didn't expect me to show up at the altar, but I did. And when I walked away, I wasn't leaving something behind. I was walking straight into the rest of my life, alone maybe, but never empty.